25th, 2022. We are live at the Twinsburg Government Center. My name is Greg Bellin. Also here are the other members of the Finance Committee, Mr. Post.
Hello.
And Mr. Fury. Also Mrs. Walker, Mrs. Labe, also Mary Yates, Law Director, Mr. Tanzana, and our illustrious Finance Director, Mrs. Bucci-Ross. Is there any audience participation this evening?
Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Scafidi.
Hello.
I apologize, sir.
Now I'll make it. I just wanted to include that. You hurt his feelings. He's out.
He skipped me last meeting. All right. Is there any audience participation this evening? It does not appear that there is. All right. So next up on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the December 14th, 2021 Finance Committee meeting.
Make a motion that we accept the minutes as submitted.
Mr. Fury makes a.
I'll second.
Mr. Post second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the minutes are approved as submitted 3-0. All right, next up on the agenda is the 2022 Permanent Appropriation Presentations. Mrs. Bucci-Ross.
So we are still working through the full 2022 permanent budget. We will have that next month on legislation, as soon as Mark has money.
Are we also able to turn out this row of lights too? Just one more?
Grab a mic though.
Did you hear, this one's not okay?
I don't think so. Go ahead and try.
Yes, it'd be on the wall over there.
Want me to do it for you?
Well, I could look at it.
This one's good?
No, the stream of lights are over there. I don't know which one is which, but
There we go.
that's perfect.
I think just
Okay.
for the
makes it a little bit better.
presentation's fine.
Okay, so like I said, the 2022
job.
permanent appropriations in total is still being worked on. We'll have that in front of you next month. But we do have a couple of enterprise funds as well as Parks and Recreation and Seniors up tonight. Up first, we have the Golf Pro Shop side of things with Bryan.
Oh, want to get up?
Come on up, Bryan.
Nice beard, Brian. Looks good. Well
Thank
done.
you. Sorry.
I look like Santa Claus more so than I am.
Can't do it anymore?
No, not doing it.
Am I talking about this now? Are you
You
taking?
Do you want me to talk about
No, I didn't know.
revenues, and then you can switch over to the changes in the...
What, I didn't know how it was going down, so whatever you need me to do.
Okay. I'll talk about course revenues. So after we closed out the 2021 books, which you guys will have those financials later this week, and we'll talk about some of the ending results at the end of this presentation. We took a look at how the golf course did, and then I had a chat with Bryan last week about where he thinks the course fees are going to go. So Bryan, you said we're looking at a 1 to 3%?
Yes,
increase?
across the board on all fees, driving range, carts, and all the greens fees, correct.
Yeah. So that put us, just for course operating revenues, we're going to budget around $1.3 million for the course for 2022. So like Bryan and I always like to mention is it's weather dependent. If we have a rainy summer, there's nothing that we can do to change that. So Bryan, the last couple seasons have...
The last 3 seasons, the summers have been terrific, so hopefully that's a trend, like from now forever, but I doubt it. But yeah, like Sarah said, it's weather dependent, and the last 3 seasons have been spectacular. This year we started, I don't know, about March 8th or 10th, I think, we opened up, and our last golfer was December 17th, so that's rare.
Yeah.
Very rare, so it's a good season. Great weather.
So that 1 to 3% increase, where does that put us compared to courses in our little, I don't know,
Rate-wise, yeah, we're up there. We're not the highest, but we're definitely one of the top 2 or 3 if you're looking at other city-owned golf courses or Metro Park golf courses.
We're close to Hudson. We're more than Solon.
Yes, Ellsworth Meadows.
Depends
and
on
Hudson.
when you play, because Metro Parks have a significant boost on the weekends.
Yeah, a couple
but,
other, and a
but I
couple
think
other
we're very
real
competitive.
good golf courses were comparable to those
And
guys.
there's usually 2 or 3 golf courses that drop per year, so there are less places to play here than there were 5 years ago, in my opinion.
So next up, under the pro shop, we have the actual changes that we made to the temporary appropriations. So we added $30,000 in revenues just based on what we just talked about in comparison to what we had on the temporary. And then we're also adding in on the expense side of things, $27,500 for professional services. That was just an omission error that I had on the budget. We need that money there to cover the credit card fees. So that was on me. And so we just need to correct that for the permanent budget. So that puts Bryan's total 2022 permanent budget request at just above $515,000. His ending budget last year, you see that $468,000 number. Now, that 10% increase seems high, but a good chunk of that increase is because we're going to start replacing the batteries in those golf carts.
Correct.
Because the carts themselves last longer than the battery life. So Bryan, if you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yes, so we've replaced several of them. This year they're going down, but fortunately they were
Was there a
all under
warranty on those for like?
All under warranty this year.
Okay.
And we're probably 2 or 3 months in the next season under warranty. So
Okay,
we'll be
then we're
pretty
done.
good.
And
Then
then
we're
we're-
done. Then we
okay.
got to start replacing those batteries. You get 5 to 6 years out of those batteries. Revenue numbers for carts are 250 plus a season. So we're going to start changing over some of those batteries this year at our cost towards the end of the season. And there's 6 batteries in each golf cart. So
What does
and
it
we
cost
have
for a
80
battery?
golf carts.
What's a rough price for a battery?
Anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000. Like
Per cart, per battery?
per cart.
Okay.
So last year they had trouble getting batteries in, and they're still predicting that's going to be the case going next year. So hopefully everything works out where we can get what we need and get them replaced to keep the fleet up and running.
Thank you.
Out of those 80 carts, Brian, how many do you anticipate you would have to swap out this year?
It depends on which they run a diagnosis test on them, see how many hours they run. That's how we're getting replaced with the warranty. So like if you open up a seat, there's 6 batteries. There may be 1 new one in there, and the other 5 are fine.
Okay.
So it kind of depends on the hours that they run.
Okay.
And we'll
Gotcha.
learn that as we
Thank
go,
you.
as we start finding some problems with the
Gotcha.
golf carts.
In general, though, do you find the carts are running?
Oh, they're
well?
fantastic.
Yeah,
Yep.
good.
Still, like the day we bought them.
Yeah, good.
Good answer. Okay, and then the restaurant and banquet services will continue to be provided by JJB. Those are the Burntwood folks. So the rent and utility payment income will still be that $102,000, and that is in addition to the budgeted $1.3 million that we expect from course operating revenues. As we always talk about, the general bond payment fund covers the clubhouse bond, so that payment will be run under that separate fund.
I know, Sarah, for the first couple of years of that particular contract, the rent portion of it is fixed. Is the utility piece of it fixed as well, or is that variable?
For the first 3 years, the rent and the utility piece is fixed
Okay.
for that contract. And then in years 4 and 5, I know the rent, it can adjust. I'm not sure about the utilities.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and
I
look
was
at the
just curious.
language.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's okay. So we have this year plus 1 more year at the 102.
yes,
Okay.
because we're in, yeah, because they went in at the end of 2020.
Right.
So they did a full year in 21, they'll do a full year in
Okay.
2022.
Plus
So,
1 more.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Did I also hear somewhere along the line that we get a percentage of sales if they're over a certain amount? Or was that just not? I thought I heard that.
As a public entity, we can't take a percentage of sales in a lease agreement. So we designed the lease agreement to really satisfy both parties. At the end of a time period, we will get access to all their revenue numbers. And then, based on those revenues numbers, the rent can go up. But based on those revenues numbers, they have a ceiling of where if they aren't meeting it, they can get out of the lease. So that was kind of a give and take between the two of us. So if they hang around, unless they're doing kind of flat revenue above the amount that allows them to get out, we should start seeing some slight increases in the rent.
It sounds like some very slight.
It depends. I mean, I just don't know. We haven't been privy to any of the financial information. All we can go on is what we see and hear and drive by, you know, so. But yeah, we'll have access to that. I believe at the end of 23, we'll have access to that.
Yeah, Because they came in towards the end of 2020 because Bryan ran food and bev
Their lease started
September
January
for the most
1.
of that first year of the pandemic.
Yeah, January 1 of 2021. No.
It was a year
It's
ago.
got to be 2020.
No, because we gave them, there was, the negotiations, their lease started, but
We didn't get paid for the
we didn't
first
get paid
quarter.
for the first 3 or 4 months. Yeah. But
So we had like October, November, December of 2021.
But that's based on like calendar year, the
Right.
so rent increase.
That's right.
Okay, sorry.
All right. Any other questions for Bryan on his budget for 2022?
So Brian, when are you going to decide on the rates?
Working on them currently.
I think we should raise at least 2%. I think that.
Oh, I agree.
What we're getting from, Boulder Creek with stuff that they're putting out there. And I just think that we can easily sell what we have now for a couple
Yeah,
percent.
definitely increase for sure.
Are you raising the league rates?
Yes, everything's going up. Range,
Okay.
leagues, everything's going up. Unfortunately, you guys already know our costs, expenses are going up. So
Staffing is huge.
staffing, knock on wood, staffing.
Thanks, Brian.
Brian, I had talked to Greg about concerns, not concerns, so much as things that I was thinking about last year, because I was on the golf advisory, but they never met. So I had talked to Greg a little, and along the lines of if there is a picnic in the pavilion, if there's any way Brentwood would work with us to have a hot dog and a Coke versus a flatbread, because, when you go at a golf outing, I don't want a flatbread after. Just give me a hot dog and a beer or a Coke or something like that, or just a deal for a pitcher of beer there when you're done. Just like a window or something. We discussed that, and it was something that I had, thought that it would be nice to do, something that we had done in the past that golfers
As far as like
appreciate.
after they're done playing golf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they do sell beer and stuff and hot dogs and snacks out of the window.
Do they sell hot dogs out of the window?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And sandwiches.
Oh, okay.
And soft drinks.
And of course,
beer.
anything
So
from the
the-
restaurant you
so-
can pre-order as well.
So, but if you were to cater for, on the, in the pavilion there, they wouldn't do that?
That gets into the contract, and I wasn't involved with any of that, so I'm not sure exactly what the contract has as far as, say, if you wanted to do your own food over there. I know this year they catered several events. Obviously, we had issue with one of them, so.
No, we did have a meeting. I set up a meeting, was it 2 weeks ago?
Couple weeks
I think
ago.
with their regional manager and then their marketing manager that oversees Aaron and Moses. And we talked about a lot of the issues that I think a lot of them that came up at the golf advisory board meeting that just happened. But we turned over all of food and beverage operations. And the more we can kind of stay out of that, the better. I understand that, they're trying to run a business to cater and do what they can, but we did have some conversations regarding the snack shop operations and ways to kind of cater to the golfers as they come off the course, and just a number of issues that have kind of
Beverage card
arisen.
issues, yeah.
Yeah. So that, beverage cart was another big one that we talked about. So they're still, kind of learning the golf world, so to speak, and what, how to operate, and maximize because they want to maximize the revenue from the golfers. They should. I mean, there's 37,000 rounds we had last year. So, but we did have that meeting, and hopefully we'll continue to have that kind of dialogue that, we can encourage them to take care of the golfers. So.
Yeah, I think we'll see some change there. They had a new general manager come in more towards the middle of the season, so he had to learn everything, but he's been really good as well. Like the mayor said, we met with them, so I think you're going to see some changes for the better next year, but I just, like he said, food and beverage we're out of, so I just can't make any guarantees.
I have a quick question for you. I'm gonna put you on the spot, but the out is, you don't have to answer the question. Do you think Brentwood does a good job catering to the golfers?
There's room for improvement.
All right, I'll take that.
A good answer.
And as long as I think we're improving, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you and Jim have always been my face of the golf course. And
Good looking face.
it is. I like that. I like the winter wear.
Model for the.
So I guess it's your assessment of that situation would weigh heavily on my opinion of how we can improve, because I think there's room for improvement.
Yes,
That was
yes,
very
there's
well
definitely
said.
room,
Okay.
like the mayor said, we met with them, so.
Okay.
I think there's a new regional operations manager as well that we met at that meeting, so
Mhm.
I think some changes are gonna come.
That's good to hear. Thank you. And I apologize for my tardiness.
Now that the city has a membership to Canterbury, we're going to go check out that cert and see how they service people and see how they can keep
Okay.
going. I think we have multiple
Thank you,
trips there.
Brian.
planned already.
Appreciate it.
Let me know when we're heading over, Mr. Fury.
Yeah.
Okay, it's all right. City's got a membership now.
Okay, next up, we have Jim Roberts for the golf maintenance side of things.
All right, good evening, everybody.
Hi, Jim.
I guess we'll go over this slide then.
Yeah, if you want to, or I can get you started, but
Sure.
if you want to go over the temporary appropriation changes. Again, Jim and I met with the mayor last week to talk over what changes we might need to that temporary budget. So the operating costs, we're adding in another $19,500 to a couple line items. Jim, do you want to speak to the concern on expected price increases?
Sure. When we put the budget together in August, we had a couple increases since then. So in talking with Sarah, utilities, we bumped up a little bit, looking at last year, as well as the miscellaneous contractual. The Aqueduct Pond Management Company that we work with, they upped their rates too as well this year. So for that category, we did increase that. Our operating across the board, our chemicals, fertilizers, fuel and fuel usage, we wanted to make sure that we accounted for those increases too. In talking to our suppliers for this year, unfortunately, as Brian mentioned, just everything's just really going up across the board there.
How big percentage-wise was the Aqueduct increase?
It was roughly about $1,500 on a $8,000 contract, so it went up from $8,000 to about $9,500.
Okay, that's 20%.
20%, yeah.
Did you hear anything? I didn't hear anything.
And once again, that's for that contract is for 3 ponds on not just one, every 2 weeks throughout the growing season. So, and then repairs and maintenance. That went up, but that just reflected last year's number as well, to put that number back in to cover those parts and repairs.
And then on the capital side of things, we did have 2 items that came back at a higher cost. This is something that you're going to see across the departments. A lot of those capital items that went through Capital Improvement Board and Finance Committee and Council last year, they're just coming back higher prices, just like everything else is. I think the trucks are going to be a concern this year. I'm sure when we have Chris up to talk, he might bring Fred with him even maybe, because I'm already getting calls from almost every department that the pricing has changed since when they looked into it last year. So Jim, do you want to talk to the golf cart and the rough mower there?
Sure. We had a few items on the capital improvements list for this year. They all went through the CIB and were approved through CIB at this time. These items, the reel spin grinder, which sharpens the cutting units at the golf course, that is on there. That didn't go up. That was still listed as $47,000. The pull behind blower is on there as well. That there was no increase in that for $9,500. As Sarah mentioned, the rotary rough mower did go up considerably from last year, so that went up to $80,000. And this is to replace a 2006 unit. This is 2 generations behind. That this particular unit that we use right now is no longer in production. Our mechanic last year, when we had breakdowns with it, it was extremely challenging to get parts for it. So it was recommended to replace, just because those parts are just so hard to find right now.
Jim, that went up to 80.
It
What
did.
was it when you came to capital improvement?
Low 60s.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's a new unit?
It is a new unit. Also, this unit, hopefully, we'll get It is an investment. Hopefully we'll get, 15+ years out of it, out of this unit. So, yeah, I was shocked at the increase as well. And then the utility golf cart, which is also another replacement, that went up from 14 to about 18,500, about $4,500 too as well. So for those increases, that total came up to, what was that?
Yeah, so the total 2022 permanent request for golf maintenance is just under $980,000. Last year, the budget was $780,000, so the main difference there, almost $200,000, is all the capital items. We did no capital items in 2021. We held back on all the capital requests from Jim last year, just to give us a solid year of operations to see how the golf course was doing now that the clubhouse was in place and we had the JJB contract there. So $195,000 of that $200,000 increase is the capital.
So we had a budget of 780. Do you know what we finished at? Do you have
Yeah.
the finished numbers yet
I
for
do.
that line?
Yeah, let me find it though.
Thank you.
And while she's looking, we're also looking at, there was a proposal to finance the mower. So, we'll crunch the numbers, but there is an option to spread that out over like a
5 years, 4 years.
3-year period or 5-year period.
It's another option.
Lease to buy?
That we could look at.
Yeah. So at the end, we'd own it, like we do police cars and other things too.
Do you recall off the top of your head, you said that's a 2006 unit that we're replacing, the mower?
Correct.
Do you recall when we got it? Do you know how many years we've got out of it?
We did purchase it that year,
That year, okay.
2005, 2006, in that time frame. Yep.
Thank you.
Is it
So-
completely inoperable? Is it completely busted or?
It's running, but challenging for parts.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's some work that needs to be done on it, David, but that's challenging.
Right.
So
Enough with
last
work to
year, ending expense was $714,000, which put us at 91.5% of the budget spent, which is
Okay.
about even with citywide. We spent about 90% of our expense budget last year.
Okay.
So it's pretty.
So your 195 deficit for that entity is based on 100% of the budget?
Well, the anticipated subsidy is under 150,000. It's that 147 number at the bottom of that slide.
I'm aware of that.
But yes.
But that, you got 147 when you added up the expenses versus the expected, or excuse me.
That would be if they spent 100% of their expense
Thank
budget,
you.
correct?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions for Jim on his permanent budget updates?
Question not relating to finances, though. Is it possible that the sidewalk by the maintenance building get edged?
Yes.
Is that possible? I know in Ethan's Green we have meetings and we have had multiple residents say, how do we get that edge? We walk all the time. The maintenance equipment's right there. Can they just edge the side? So it's just,
The Glenwood side there?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
right in Glenwood, right by the maintenance building.
Got it.
There's that strip right there. That feels-
Right in the front of the maintenance building.
Right in front of it. It feels like that strip is never edged. We've actually had multiple residents ask us about that. So I thought,
Thank you
while
for
I'm here-
thank you for the information. We can take care of that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
No problem.
Thank you.
Probably won't happen this week.
But you need to buy him a new edge.
Can you?
He wants a new
Did
edge.
you plow that sidewalk?
I want that-
Otherwise, there's nothing we can do, Jamie.
I like that edged now.
Is there a big pile of snow at the end of the driveway?
Right.
We're gonna make those illegal.
Anything else?
Those insulating glass units could probably be replaced. I know a guy in the windows there, a little foggy from the street, so.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Thank you, Jim.
Scott's ready.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have Jennifer Betenson we'll start off with Parks and Recreation, and she has a couple different departments to go over.
Flat.
I'll let you start. Okay. So Parks and Recreation, underneath their budget, there's some staffing and everything, but a lot of their money is spent on the events, Rock the Park, the special events that they do, the camp that they run. So when you see the numbers for the department, even though it's a smaller department, they do a lot for the city. So that's why the number is a little bit higher than you might be expecting. So I just want to put it out there because we have a couple new people on council. So the temporary appropriations changes, we got a couple requests to update our holiday display items in front of City Hall and
lack
fire
thereof.
stations.
Let's talk about
From
that
a
again.
couple folks.
Or lack
So we
thereof.
have $20,000 added into the budget to replace, I don't know if you saw the decorations up close, but they are a little outdated. And we do have money in the budget from last year that we carried forward for the City Hall uplighting. So that will go into place.
Everything should be in June, so we'll get all of that in place for this year. So this is going to replace things like the nativity scene, possibly our own menorah instead of having to borrow it.
So you're going to buy a nativity scene? Okay, because that was mentioned in the last year that,
Yes.
but,
That and
Fine.
some other items. We want to wait and see what the uplighting is going to look like once they get those drawings back to us before I put everything else in
are you
place.
planning on having the uplighting go the whole length of the building or just
Yes.
the higher elevation?
It goes the entire length of the building.
Okay.
Yeah, and, I mean, the nice part about that is different times of year, we can
Yeah, you
we
make
can
it
do
blue
different things
or-
with it.
yeah,
Yeah, for,
absolutely.
you know, for Josh's.
Let's just buy it once and be done with it.
Right. Yeah.
So, and a lot of the stuff we're looking at has about a 5 to 7 year warranties and life on them. So if we take care of them, we should be able to get some long life out of them. This will also cover not just City Hall. This will put some decorations at Station 2, some at the fitness center, as well as some additional stuff at Station 1.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And then the big item, it's actually under capital improvement fund, but on the capital side of things, we are not going to move forward with the bridge replacement at the Rock the Park this year. We need to do an EPA study, we have found out. Jen, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
It's the little creek going down the,
Yeah, so basically what we have found out, to make us ADA compliant, we cannot just replace the bridge and put in some concrete slips. We have to actually grade down, which is it's a bigger project than that. So what we're gonna look at with the EPA is if we can fill in where that creek is, come down, bring it down, and take away the bridge completely. And
Okay.
that'll completely be grassed and taken care of. That'll start that. The second topic is going to be bathrooms that need to be added, and then we have to fix that hill. So that would be a major project that I don't know where we're gonna be at. We're gonna have to bring in another firm to do that
Yeah.
for us.
I mean, just to bring newer council up to date, I mean, a few years ago, we had budgeted for, had plans to redo the bathroom that services both the playground, camp, and Rock the Park. Those bathrooms, if you've been in them, they're scary. And it kept getting kicked. I mean, we had a little bit of grant money, but like 10 grand or 15
Yeah.
grand, but we never went forward with it. The original proposal was about a $250,000 bathroom. We're trying to scale that down to where we can just get something new and clean and easy to maintain to put there. So, because we really need to redo that bathroom. So, but
so would you gut it out or would you tear it down and rebuild it?
probably tear it down and rebuild
The
it.
whole thing, yeah. Because they did they gutted it the first when we thought we were gonna replace it. When we knew we weren't, we had to go back in and
Reinstall
retrofit everything. So, no, it would have to be in a complete redo. And I think Chris is gonna kind of go over that in his.
We've had it on our list of major project items for probably over a year now,
Would
so
it be bigger
he's got it.
or same size?
It would just depend. We've got several different designs that we've used in the past. It's just gonna depend on where we're at
Yeah,
that
I
time.
mean,
Just need more stalls when you're at Rock the Park.
I just know a lot of times there's long lines.
Yeah, because the other thing that's been mentioned is to add bathrooms up by cold storage for Rock the Park. But I'd rather get this one bathroom replaced
Yeah,
first
'cause
before
this
we
one,
even go that
everybody
route.
uses
it gets used a
Well, it's
lot by just
multi-use,
residents
yeah.
in general, so I mean, it'd be better, especially for all the parties and rentals that we do, the pavilions there. I mean, that's the only bathroom.
So is the bridge dangerous at this point?
It is not dangerous. We are continually maintaining it, but it's getting more and more difficult to do so.
All right.
It's just not ADA friendly, is it?
No,
Not at all.
no.
Is there a way to just make it more ADA friendly?
There really isn't at this
You can't
point
put
without.
something on top of of whatever's there now, like rubber or something?
No, it's a basic complete tear down and reinstall.
Okay.
Which is what that large part of that cost was. but we really are looking at now just taking it out, so that's why I want to get the AP in.
I guess, is that like just a little stream? Because I don't even think there's water going down that bridge.
So from
Very
what we've
often.
found out, regardless if we see water down there or not, they're still going to consider it storm drainage, so we have to have the EPA come in, make sure that it flows correctly into into stormwater drains. So that's what the EPA will come in and tell us.
Do you know when this is going to be started? Because so far I'm getting calls from 2 residents, Sam's people. Thank you, and you're welcome.
About what?
About the bridge. The bridge and saying it's unsafe and,
At Rock the Park?
yeah.
I've never
I
heard.
think it's in back of, Rock the Park or next to it. There's
Well,
a bridge that goes.
There was certain complaints about some of the pavilions, but we took care of the,
It
you
is
know.
the bridge.
Oh, that'd be citizen.
I've never heard
engineer?
anything about the bridge, so. I've never heard anything about the
Yeah, I
bridge.
haven't heard anything about the bridge either. So, I mean, they'll look at things again in the spring, and we'll make the necessary maintenance things that we have to do.
This doesn't actually fit in this, but just a question. Were we replacing the suspension bridge across Tinker's Creek at, off East Idlewood? I'm on East Idlewood, I'm at the parking lot where the ball field is.
I know Amy has looked at that.
At one point, was somebody saying that that was unsafe and needed to be repaired?
Yes.
I know we've done
The
some work on
decking
that
is-
bridge too, some decking work on that bridge. That's a big project, because I know Amy has looked at that, but I couldn't tell you.
Okay, so
Right now,
that's not
yeah.
imminent.
Which
No.
bridge? On Idlewood?
East Idlewood.
Yeah.
By the
It's,
ball field.
there's a ball field and then there's a bridge that takes you across, and when it's really
Oh.
flooding, the water hits the bridge.
The
Oh, yeah, it
bridge
gets way up
in-
there.
By the park there.
Yeah, by the
Oh,
park.
okay, gotcha.
That's what I was talking about. And I don't remember exactly what's going on, but somebody was saying, hey, it's damaged, you're gonna have to replace that bridge.
Gotcha.
As long as we're talking about that bridge and EPA, I just didn't know if that was on the 2 or 3 year track or where we're at with that or how.
Yeah, I think the EPA is because we want to take out the bridge and probably put in piping and grass on top of it where there is no bridge. You're just going, and so that's where the EPA gets involved if you're doing anything that's going to potentially change the flow of stormwater or the stream.
What if we just did 20 feet of it and put rails on the side of it and did asphalt over it?
We meet with Amy tomorrow, and we can
Yeah.
talk to her about that
Because-
and come back and talk about it at her budget meeting next month. She'll be here next month.
You know what I'm saying? Instead of doing
If that's okay.
the whole crevice from the top all the way down. You just,
Okay, so Jen's 22 permanent budget request is just above $673,000. You'll see that's a pretty big drop from last year's budget. Essentially what's happening in Parks and Rec is it's just gonna be in flux from last year to the year before and the year before because of the pandemic. We're still finding that balance of where we need to end. So this year, Jen is got a full slate. Camp's gonna be back to normal, I believe, if you wanna talk about a quote-unquote return to normalcy this year. But essentially, we're finding that balance of post-pandemic, what does Parks and Rec look like?
Yeah, and that's basically what we're doing. We are going to return camp to its traditional 205 kids.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
There will be a slight increase in the fees. We will be providing busing for field trips only. And that will be in the cost of the camp. So it'll be completely covered. My goal with most everything that I do is going to try and be cost neutral as I possibly can. Camp got hit last year because of our salaries and wages, because we took that big increase in the part-time wages. So we've built that into our increase for this year as well. Everything else, we are returning to as much normal as we possibly can. Senior events, same thing. Anything that she has that we have to cost incurred, she is passing that on, and we're making that as neutral as we possibly can as we try to learn what this new normal is going to be.
And you can see, I actually just flipped to the senior center slide here for Jen. We added to the revenue side of things for the senior center as well. So you'll see an increase there, but there's an offsetting increase on the revenue side. Because we do charge for those senior field trips.
Yeah, the field trips used to be subsidized by the senior board. they're no longer subsidized by the senior board. So we are now collecting full rate for that, and then she is passing that cost through. So again, cost neutral. So that's the only reason that we added to her side, to her line items.
Senior snow plowing still yours, or is it Chris's?
So senior snowplow is split. We accept the registrations. Once the registration time is finished, it goes over to service.
Do you remember how many people are on that program?
251.
Thank you.
We shortened the list this year. We tried to really make it about the need-based people. I know that we're going to work with the mayor and Matt on the program for 2022 and going into 2023, just to make it a little more clear and a little more user-friendly for those that really do need the service.
Yeah, yeah, we're going to look at that. We're looking at our senior transportation. We've got some different requests over the last 3 or 4 months for non-seniors asking just for assistance in transportation. So we really need to. We've got one driver, so we have a couple of vehicles, but we only have one driver. So we need to really make that about the seniors and those that don't have any other way to get around.
Is the intent then, specifically on the snow plowing, to be less than that 251 number?
With service,
or
we
would
need
that
to
be
see, we need to see where service ends this year.
Okay.
Because where it was last year was a lot for them to handle.
Okay.
We kind of broke it down. We're going to see if this is a comfortable number for them. If it is, then we'll hold the program at this.
Okay.
And we'll just say that spots are limited.
Okay.
The majority of the people in the program right now did pay to be in the program.
And what does that cost? Okay.
It's $50 if you make between $32,000 and $60,000.
For the season. Yeah.
So
So it's not, it's a subsidized amenity.
Right.
If you want to call it amenity for our seniors. There's no cost neutral in now.
No.
Yeah.
Do you know how many of you said it was more last year? You know how many it was last year?
last year we had 302.
Yeah, it was right at
over
300.
Okay.
Right at
I
300.
thought so. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We capped it at 300, and we usually take on a couple extra, just depending on circumstance.
Okay, thank you.
And this year we broke them up when they registered so that we knew who paid, so that we can kind of see where that number's coming in at.
But you dropped 50 people because you went from 302 to 250.
Right.
Okay.
60 grand is pretty generous for $50 a year.
I'm not arguing, I'm just looking at the numbers.
No.
Because the other thing is.
We get a lot of
when you
applications
have
with
$300,000
$59,000 on the application. Do we require proof? We get a lot of applications with $59,000 written in on the application.
That is one of the things that we are looking at for this year.
There's a lot of way to make W-2 say something, so.
Yeah, so this year, that's one of the changes that we want to look at, because we do that for our Lifeline program. They have to prove their income.
Yeah.
So,
Grand year investment income.
So next up, we have the fitness center. And they do have an updated marketing and programming plan, which Jen has been talking about for a few months now. So if you just want to speak like really quickly to some of the changes you guys are looking at the fitness center.
so basically what we did is we held the monthly cost where it was in '21, but we raised everything else 3%. Annual members are now going to have a few more incentives department-wide. So if you're an annual member at the fitness center, you're going to get program discounts, you're going to get early registration on events, camp, things like that. We're trying to really push those annual memberships. But we've pulled the focus a bit away from memberships because we found that we were not utilizing that space and renting that space that we could. So if any of you have been there lately, you'll notice there are more and more people in the field house, and that is because we are renting the field house. Our rental rates are kind of standard across the board. We're able to rent to all sorts of entities now, while still being able to serve some of the members that need that space as well. So Sundays we have TYSL in there, and we have a volleyball league in there. TRBL is there every night. We have community basketball teams and things going on, so we're really, really trying to utilize that space. That's why if you look at the budget, the rental revenue went up. It increased, I think, almost by half.
Yeah, so if you look at past years on the rentals at the fitness center, it was somewhere between $60,000 and $70,000. Last year, they did 120.
Good job.
So, big difference.
So,
That's awesome. Way to go, Jen.
Yeah, that's a good job.
thank you.
Congratulations, well done.
Thank you.
Jen had the lowest deficit that I can recall since I've been here last year at 50,000. It was in the mayor's report that they sent out. So, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jen, typically in January is when fitness increases, right?
So typically, no. It happens around the third week of January and goes into about the first week of March. Then it will start to drop again. What is going to sustain us this year right now is our bundles, because people want that better price for the water park. So that's what gets us, kind of pushes us through these few months. We do have our resolutioners, but they will start to drop off. But that's why we're hoping to get away from less monthly members and get more into those annual members.
So the main changes to the temporary appropriations for fitness center, we reduced, after our meeting, we reduced salaries and wages $40,000 because we do not plan on hosting the kid park in 2022. And then the big item that we've been talking about for years is the roof and the pool packs. So we have to start looking into the design of how we're going to do that and what the true cost is. We've heard that 7-digit number for a long time now, but now it really needs to happen. We need to get some hard numbers. So that initial design, we're looking at $22,000, putting that into the budget so that we can see what the true cost is and see when we really need to do this program, because we did have some major roof issues recently, so we've got to get moving on it.
So when it comes that time, can we at least consider like financing it either?
I think we're going to have to consider all options. Yeah.
Because if you did everything you want, and the prices didn't change, we're talking about 1.5 rough.
Rough.
Okay.
Yeah.
So instead of taking a 1.5 rough and like basically more than our road program in a year hit,
Right.
if we could spread that out,
Yeah.
and rates haven't gone up that bad, they're still pretty low, so it'd be interesting to see what we could get or what options we had.
And the other roofs that we're working on right now, the price increases have hit there just like everything else. So that number that we've been hearing is probably not the number once they start looking at it.
I'll do that in miscellaneous. Go ahead.
So that 10% increase that you see there, we're just under $1.4 million for the budget request. It's really, we added back one full-time staff member and their capital expenses. So this anticipated subsidy is $160,000. Their capital expenses for 2022 is $158,000. So we're looking at hopefully close to break even on the operating side of things.
Good.
So any other questions for Jen on Parks and Rec or seniors or fitness? Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks.
All right, next up on the agenda then is the 2021 financial review.
Yes, so I've got some initial results for you. Like I said, you will receive the 2021 financials cash basis later this week. We're going to start working on the conversion for our financial statements for the auditors next week. So initial cash balances in the general fund, we started off at $11.7 million. We ended at $12.4 million. So we gained just over 660 grand, excuse me, in the general fund. So building up those reserves, it's not quite the increase we took in 2020. We had, a couple $1 million that we built up through the federal funding, but it's still going to help as we feel the impact of the work from home, which we'll talk about here in a couple slides. If we look at all funds together, we started off at 22 million. We ended at 28, almost and a half million, a difference of over $6 million. Now, a big chunk of that is on the sewer side, the sewer revenue and the sewer improvement funds. We have been building funds there. We've talked about it the last couple years because we have those big investments in the wastewater treatment plant coming. I believe they're going to start, we're doing some of the design work this year, and those improvements are going to start next year. So you're going to start seeing those $1 million.
But we don't have any more millions coming in. The reminder bill money's been paid?
Correct. We do not have more millions in the sewer improvement fund coming in. That was $2 million that we got last year. But we had that, the sewer revenue we've been talking about if we.
5 years, yeah. I'm just saying, so there's no more chunks of money, and that's why we have 3.758
Right.
in there.
Yep.
So, thank
Yeah,
you.
$2 million of that was just from that one thing. Yep.
So-
And then we've got almost $1 million in ARPA funds that we received last year that we did not spend. So that's $5 million out of that $6 million right there. So then on income tax and pandemic relief on the revenue side, 2021, we took in just under $23 million in income taxes. So we did bounce back a little bit from 2020. We're still down from 2019, but we knew that that was going to happen. Our greatest concern going forward is what we've been talking about the whole time, what's going to happen with the work from home and who's coming back into the city at work and who's staying at home to work and where's that money going to go. So Rita keeps us up to date on all those changes. Probably the last bit of relief funding that we'll get, half of it came in last year under the American Rescue Plan. We'll get the other $1 million this year. At this time, we do not expect any other relief funding for the pandemic, from the pandemic. And since we had golf and fitness attending tonight, I did want to point out how their funds ended up. The 2021 total subsidy on the golf course was $55,500. If you look at the actual course operations, they were actually in the positive, but that $55,000 we had put in at the beginning of the year to get them through the winter, but they ended up making that money back. So on the fitness center side, we did subsidize $94,000. Again, same thing, we subsidized at the end of the year to make sure their fund started off in a good place for 2022.
That 94,000 is everything.
Right, that's the full subsidy for the fitness center, yeah. And if you look at the bottom numbers there, if you compare to the pandemic year, there are huge differences. So that big difference that we made with the JJB contract to go from $500,000 at the golf course to $55,000, and then on the fitness center side, huge changes were made by Jennifer and her team on the fitness center side. So.
That's great.
Okay. So that's just some initial 2021 numbers for you, and I'll have more information next month. We'll go through those graphs that we always go through. So next up is the credit card reporting. You'll see you've got a couple sheets in your packet there. This is just the credit card information I have to show you guys each year to show you what credit cards we have. There are really no changes, but it's just to give it to Finance Committee so you guys have been presented with that information. But if you have any questions on them, just let me know. And then our last thing that I wanted to touch on today for finance is one of our large employers did reach out to us and say that their folks are not going to be returning to the offices in Twinsburg for the most part. So Cardinal Health, one of the city's larger employers, they had just under 1,000 employees pre-pandemic coming into the city to work. After their work from home changes that they put into place once they saw how the remote work was working for their people and that their people appreciated that work from home, they are not looking to come back into the office in the way that they were pre-pandemic. So we're looking at probably a 90% loss of those employees. There'll probably be, I think it was about 50 or 60 people still live in the city, and then there's 50 or 60 people that will be coming still into the city to work on the distribution side of things. But those office workers are not going to be coming back into the city. And they did give us a nice statement And they have been very kind in sharing their information, which we very much appreciate.
Yeah, this is our largest employer.
Is there a building that goes with that?
They have a large campus.
There are several buildings.
They have a large campus, so depending on
We're-
what they end
yeah.
up doing, yeah.
We're in communication with them
Yeah.
on their real estate as well. The mayor asked those questions when they first
Right.
reached out to us.
Because if they're vacating a lot of their space, I mean, there are opportunities to backfill the space. Again, I don't know if it would be the same level of jobs that we had with Cardinal. And then our second largest employer is completely vacating their building, their office building.
So I do have a note at the bottom there that the mayor and Larry Finch, our economic development director, they're keeping in communication with the local business community to see what everyone's return to work plans are. Larry will be here with us next month to talk about his budget, but we'll probably ask him for an update on where he thinks are. But for the most part, most of the people that he's reaching out to, they do have some sort of work from home option that's going to be on a more permanent level.
So is there any way for us to gauge how many people in Twinsburg that work out of their house in Twinsburg, like my wife and I are currently doing?
You mean in total,
Well, or so we're
or
saying.
just from these companies?
Rita's telling us where they think people are moving.
Right.
Shouldn't we be picking up some people as well?
Right, so if you remember way back towards the beginning of the pandemic, they did an estimate for us. For every 10% of people that switched to work from home, Twinsburg would lose 3% of revenues because there is that offset of the folks that are staying in Twinsburg
Okay.
to work.
All right.
But this is a bigger loss. This is a big company, and it's going to be hard to offset that with people staying home to work in Twinsburg.
Sure, so we
You know,
need
when
to
you're
work to
talking
fill that
about,
building with
right,
the,
when you're talking about 800 or 900 jobs versus you have an 18,000 person community, 19,000 person community, not all 19,000 of those people are working, obviously.
First it was Revco, then it was Chrysler, so we've been through
Yeah.
this before.
What is the revenue potential loss?
So we are working with them on that. The problem that we have right now is we're not sure exactly which jobs are going to be staying in the city. But they know that we've asked for that information and they're working to get it back to us. But really, until they've done everything officially on their side and they're completely done with the transition, we're not gonna know. My guess is we'll probably not know until maybe the second quarter when we really start seeing.
And there's no reason to speculate, so we just get a number.
Right, it would be difficult to throw out a number because it would just be a total guess.
Okay. Who was the second largest, Ted?
So this was a company that transitioned to Rite Aid, but Envision RX. Yeah.
So they have not reached out to us. The landlord came to us to speak about their lease, that it looks like they may not be renewing. But we don't have any information on them to share.
Okay, any additional comments or questions, miscellaneous? Mr. Fury?
You know, we talked about earlier, when we talked about the fitness center and the roof that we've been talking, that's been brought up for the last few years as a major capital expense in the future. Where are we at with the service to garage? Either retrofitting or new? Yeah, I mean, we talked about we're going to do some retrofitting or some upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant, but that's adjacent to, and you know, have we looked at, you know,
Yeah, I think
do we have a plan?
Chris's budget is looking at potentially an analysis and design.
I think the big piece of the puzzle right now is where would the
Where does
service
it go?
garage live?
Yeah.
And so that's something that the discussions have started, but that is a huge piece of the puzzle that we have not solved yet, is where would that service garage go? Because I think once the location is determined, then everything else can fall into place and we can start working on design, what the layout looks like. So Chris will be here in March to present his budget, and we'll probably talk about the service garage because it's on the list and it's coming. It needs some help.
Do we have a timeline to at least make the decision of where it's going to go?
We really haven't, we haven't set a timeline. I mean, right now our options are limited.
Right.
You know, we still have our salt dome that's right there, which is convenient. Yeah, yeah, full. We just ordered our first 1,000 tons, so we're going to be looking to where we're going to put salt again this year, probably. But yeah, I mean, there's just limited options. I mean, if the school got further along in the analysis of Dodge or Dodge, then we would have potentially some different options. But right now we have the land up, behind by Rock Park, and then we have where the service garage is currently located. So, I mean, I know Chris likes having the service garage and wastewater collectively there together. So the analysis would probably be on that particular site, but we haven't come to that conclusion yet.
Are we definitely building a new service garage? I mean, has that decision already been made?
No,
Oh,
the decision
okay.
hasn't been made. No, it's been talked about for a number of years. I mean, there's been some preliminary estimates, but we really haven't gone through any type of analysis, paid for type, analysis or feasibility study on what it would look like and how it would be designed and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's part of the location decision. If it would make sense to stay right there,
Yeah.
there might be just improvements to the current building.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Next Finance Committee meeting will be on February 22nd at 6 p.m., Sarah?
Yes.
Yeah, 6 p.m. here in council chambers. And with that, I will adjourn the Finance Committee meeting at 6:56 p.m.